Okay, here we go. When the knocking started on his hut door, Max almost didn't answer it. Go away, he almost said, because lately it was only kids come to mock him. Except this was a little past the time for kids being up. It was almost midnight. And besides, the knocking was both loud and at the same time rat-a-tatty, as if the brain was saying to the fist, hurry it up, I want to see a little action. So Max opened the door a peek's worth. I don't know you. Aren't you Miracle Max, that worked all those years for the king? This skinny guy said. I got fired, didn't you hear? That's a painful subject. You shouldn't have brought it up. Good night. Next time, learn a little manners. And he closed the hut door. Rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat. Get away, I'm telling you, or I'll call the brute squad. I'm on the brute squad, this other voice said from outside the door. A big, deep voice you wanted to stay friendly with. We need a miracle. It's very important, the skinny guy said from outside. I'm retired, Max said. Anyway, you wouldn't want someone the king got rid of, would you? I might kill whoever you want me to miracle. He's already dead, the skinny guy said. He is, huh? Max said, a little interest in his voice now. He opened the door a peek's worth again. I'm good at dead. Please, the skinny guy said. Bring him in. I'm making no promises, Miracle Max answered after some thought. This huge guy and this skinny guy brought in this big guy and put him on the hut floor. Max poked the corpse. Not so stiff as some, he said. The skinny guy said, we have money. Then go get some great genius specialist, why don't you? Why waste time messing around with me, a guy who the king fired? It had almost killed him when it happened. For the first 2 years, he wished it had. His teeth fell out from gnashing. He pulled the few loyal tufts from his scalp in wild anger. You're the only miracle man left alive in Florin, the skinny guy said. Oh, so that's why you come to me. One of you said, what do we do with this corpse? And the other one said, let's take a flyer on that miracle man the king fired. And the first one probably said, what have we got to lose? He can't kill a corpse. And the other one probably said, you were a wonderful miracle man, the skinny guy said. It was all politics that got you fired. Don't insult me and say wonderful. I was great. I am great. There was never, you hear me, Sonny, a miracle man could match me. Half the miracle techniques I invented, and then they fired me. Suddenly his voice trailed off. He was very old and weak, and the effort at passionate speech had drained him. Sir, please, sit down, the skinny guy said. Don't sir me, Sonny, Miracle Max said. He was tough when he was young, and he was still tough. I got work to do. I was feeding my witch when you came in. I gotta finish that now. And he lifted the hut trapdoor and took the ladder down into the cellar, locking the trapdoor behind him. When that was done, he put his finger to his lips and ran to the old woman cooking hot chocolate over the coals. Max had married Valerie back 1,000,000 years ago, it seemed like, at Miracle School, where she worked as a potion ladler. She wasn't, of course, a witch, but when Max started practice, every miracle man had to have one, so since Valerie didn't mind, he called her a witch in public, and she learned enough of the witch trade to pass herself off as one under pressure. Listen, listen, Max whispered, gesturing repeatedly toward the hut above. Upstairs, you'll never guess what I got. We gotta take a break. This is me, this is not the italics. There is a racial slur in this book. When I first read the book, I did not know it was a racial slur, okay? But it is a rude word for someone of Spanish descent, okay? So I'm going to bleep it when we get there, okay? You ready?
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Starting back it up again.
Well, will you tell me what it is so that I know what it is if I ever hear it?
Okay, the word is spick, okay?
Okay. You're going to bleep that, right?
Yeah.
How do you bleep things?
Watch. Listen, listen, Max whispered, gesturing repeatedly toward the hut above. Upstairs, you'll never guess what I got. A giant and a beep. A giant on a stick, Valerie said, clutching her heart. Her hearing wasn't what it once was. Bleep! Bleep! A Spanish fella, scars and everything, a very tough cookie. Let them steal what they want. What do we have we're fighting over? They don't want to steal, they want to buy. Me! They got a corpse up there and they want a miracle. You Always good at dead, Valerie said. She hadn't seen him trying so hard not to seem excited since the firing had all but done him in. She very carefully kept her own excitement under control. If only he would work again. Her Max was such a genius. They'd all come back, every patient. Max would be honored again, and they could move out of the hut. In the old days, the hut was where they tried experiments. Now it was home. You had nothing else pressing on for the evening? Why not take the case? I could, I admit that, no question, but suppose I did. You know human nature, they'd probably try getting out without paying. How can I force a giant to pay if he doesn't want to? Who needs that kind of grief? I'll send them on their way, and you can bring me up a nice cup of chocolate. Besides, I was halfway through an article on eagle's claws that was very well written. Get the money in advance. Go, demand. If they say no, out with them. If they say yes, bring the money down to me. I'll feed it to the frog. They'll never find it, even if they change their mind and try to rob it back. Max started back up the ladder. What should I ask for? I haven't done a miracle. It's, 3 years now? Prices may have skyrocketed. 50, you think? If they got 50, I'll consider. If not, out they go. Right, Valerie agreed. And the minute Max had shut the trapdoor, she clambered silently up the ladder and pressed her ear to the ceiling. Sir, we're in a terrible rush, so, this one voice said. Don't you hurry me, Sonny. You hurry a miracle man, you get rotten miracles. That what you want? You'll do it then? I didn't say I'd do it, Sonny. Don't try pressuring a miracle man, not this one. You try pressuring me, out you go. How much money you got? Give me your money, Fezzik, the same voice said again. Here's all I got, this great voice boomed. You count it, Inigo. There was a pause. 65 is what we've got, the one called Inigo said. Valerie was about to clap her hands with joy when Max said, I never worked for anything that little in my life. You gotta be joking. Excuse me again. I gotta belch my witch. She's done eating by now. Valerie hurried back to the coals and waited until Max joined her. No good, he said. They only got 20. Valerie stirred away at the stove. She knew the truth but dreaded having to say it, so she tried another tack. We're practically out of chocolate powder. 20 could sure be a help at the barterers tomorrow. No chocolate powder? Max said, visibly upset. Chocolate was one of his favorite, right after cough drops. Maybe if it was a good cause, you could lower yourself to work for 20, Valerie said. Find out why they need the miracle. They'd probably lie. Use the bellows cram if you're in doubt. Look, I would hate to have it on my conscience if we didn't do a miracle when nice people were involved. You're a pushy lady, Max said, but he went back upstairs. Okay, he said to the skinny guy, what's so special I should bring back out of all the hundreds of people pestering me every day for my miracles this particular fella? And believe me, it better be worthwhile. Inigo was about to say, so he can tell me how to kill Count Rugen. But that didn't quite sound like the kind of thing that would strike a cranky miracle man as aiding the general betterment of mankind. So he said, he's got a wife. He's got 15 kids. They haven't a shred of food. If he stays dead, they'll starve. So, Sonny, are you a liar, Max said. And he went to the corner and got out a huge bellows. I'll ask him, Max grunted, lifting the bellows toward Wesley. He's a corpse. He can't talk, Inigo said. We got our ways, was all Max would answer. And he stuck the huge bellows way down into Wesley's throat and started to pump. You see, Max explained as he pumped, there's different kinds of dead. There's sort of dead, mostly dead, and all dead. This fella here, he's only sort of dead, which means there's still a little memory inside. There's still bits of brain. You apply a little pressure here, a little more there. Sometimes you get results. Wesley was beginning to swell slightly now from all the pumping. What are you doing? Fezzik said, starting to get upset. Never mind, I'm just filling his lungs. I guarantee you it ain't hurting him. Hold on, Callie. Okay. He stopped pumping the bellows after a few moments more and then started shouting into Wesley's ear. What's so important? What's here we're coming back for? What you got waiting for you? Max carried the bellows back to the corner then and got out a pen and paper. It takes a while for that to work its way out, so you might as well answer me some questions. How well do you know this guy? Inigo didn't want to answer that since it might have sounded strange, admitting they'd only met once, alive, and then to duel to the death. How do you mean, exactly? Well, for example, Max said, was he ticklish or not? Ticklish? Inigo exploded angrily. Ticklish? Life and death are all around and you talk ticklish. Don't you yell at me, Max exploded right back. And don't you mock my methods. Tickling can be terrific in the proper instances. I had a corpse once, worse than this fella, mostly dead he was, and I tickled him and tickled him. I tickled his toes, I tickled his armpits and his ribs, and I got a peacock feather and went after his belly button. I worked all day and I worked all night, and the following dawn, mock me, this corpse said, I just hate that. And I said, hate what? And he said, being tickled. I've come all the way back from the dead to ask you to stop. And I said, you mean this is that I'm doing now with the peacock feather? It bothers you? And he said, you couldn't guess how much it bothers me. And of course, I just kept on asking him questions about tickling, making him talk back to me, answer me, because I don't have to tell you, once you get a corpse really caught up in a conversation, your battle's half over. True love. Fezzik grabbed onto Inigo in panic, and they both pivoted, staring at the man in black, who was silent again. True love, he said, Inigo cried. You heard him. True love is what he wants to come back for. That's certainly worthwhile. Sonny, don't you tell me what's worthwhile. True love is the best thing in the world, except for cough drops. Everybody knows that. Then you'll save him, Fezzik said. Yes, absolutely, I would save him if he had said true love. But you misheard, whereas I, being an expert on the bellows cram, will tell you what any qualified tongue man will only be happy to verify. Namely, that the F sound is the hardest for the corpse to master, and that it therefore comes out what your friend said was to blove, by which he meant obviously to bluff. Clearly, he is either involved in a shady business deal or a card game and wishes to win, and that is certainly not reason enough for a miracle. I'm sorry. I never change my mind once it's made up. Goodbye. Take your corpse with you. Liar! Liar! Shrieked suddenly from the now open trap door. Miracle Max whirled. Back, witch, he commanded. I'm not a witch. I'm your wife. She was advancing on him now, a tiny ancient fury. And after what you just done, I don't think I want to be that anymore. Miracle Max tried to calm her, but she was having none of it. He said, true love, Max. Even I could hear it. True love, true love. Don't go on, Max said, and now there was pleading coming from somewhere. Valerie turned toward Inigo. He's rejecting you because he's afraid. He's afraid he's done, that the miracles are gone from his once majestic fingers. Not true, Max said. You're right, Valerie agreed. It isn't true. They never were majestic, Max. You were never any good. The ticklish cure. You were there. You saw. A fluke. All the drowners, I returned. Chance. Valerie, we've been married 80 years. How can you do this to me? Because true love is expiring, and you haven't got the decency to tell why you don't want to help. Well, I do, and I say this. Prince Humperdinck was right to fire you. Don't say that name in my hut, Valerie. You made a pledge to me. You never breathed that name. Prince Humperdinck. Prince Humperdinck. Prince Humperdinck. At least he knows a phony when he sees one. Max fled toward the trap door, his hands going to his ears. But this is his fiancée's true love, Inigo said then. If you bring him back to life, you will stop Prince Humperdinck's marriage. Max's hands left his ears. This corpse here, he comes back to life. Prince Humperdinck suffers. Humiliations galore, Inigo said. Now that's what I call a worthwhile reason, Miracle Max said. Give me the 65. I'm on the case. He knelt beside Wesley. He said. What? Valerie said. She knew that tone. While you were doing all that talking, he slipped from sort of to mostly dead. Valerie tapped Wesley in a couple of places. Stiffening, she said. You'll have to work around that. Max did a few taps himself. Do you suppose the oracle's still up? Valerie looked at the clock. I don't think so. It's almost 1. Besides, I don't trust her all that much anymore. Max nodded. I know, but it would have been nice to have a little advance hint on whether this is going to work or not. He rubbed his eyes. I'm tired going in. I wish I'd known in advance about the job. I'd have napped this afternoon. He shrugged. Can't be helped. Down is down. Give me my encyclopedia of spells and the hex appendix. I thought you knew all about this kind of thing, Inigo said, starting to get upset himself now. I'm out of practice, retired. It's been 3 years. You can't mess around with these resurrection recipes. One little ingredient wrong, the whole thing blows up in your face.
Here's the hex book and your glasses,
Valerie puffed, coming up the basement ladder. As Max began thumbing through, she turned to Inigo and Fezzik, who were hovering. You can help, she said. Anything, Fezzik said.
Tell us whatever's useful. How long do we have for the miracle? If we work it.
When we work it, Max said from his hex book. His voice was growing stronger.
When we work it, Valerie went on, how long does it have to maintain full efficiency? Just exactly what's going to be done.
Well, that's hard to predict, Inigo said, since the first thing we have to do is storm the castle, and you never can be really sure how those things work out.
An hour pill should be about right, Valerie said. Either it's going to be plenty or you'll both be dead, so why not say an hour?
We'll all three be fighting, Inigo corrected. And then, once we storm the castle, we have to stop the wedding, steal the princess, and make our escape, allowing space somewhere in there for me to do Count Rugen. Visibly, Valerie's energy drained. She sat wearily down.
Max,
she said, tapping his shoulder.
No good.
He looked up. Huh?
They need a fighting corpse.
Max shut the hex book. No good, he said. But I bought a miracle, Inigo insisted. I paid you 65.
Look here.
Valerie thumped Wesley's chest.
Nothing. You ever hear anything so hollow? The man's life's been sucked away. It'll take months before there's strength again.
We haven't got months. It's after 1 now and the wedding's at 6 tonight. What parts can we hope to have in working order in 17 hours? Well, Max said, considering, certainly the tongue. Absolutely the brain, and with luck, maybe a little slow walk if you nudge him gently in the right direction. Inigo looked at Fezzik in despair. What can I tell you, Max said. You needed a phantasmagoria.
And you never could have gotten one of those for 65,
Valerie added consolingly. Little cut here. 20 pages, maybe. This is in italics. What happens, basically, is an alternation of scenes. What's going on in the castle, then what's the situation with the Miracle Man, back and forth, and with every shift he gives the time, sort of, there were now 11 hours until 6 o'clock, that kind of thing. Morgenstern uses the device mainly because what he's really interested in, as always, is the satiric and anti-royalty stuff, and how stupid they were going through with all of these old traditions, kissing the sacred ring of great-grandfather so-and-so, etc. There's some action stuff which I cut, which I never did anywhere else, and here's my logic. Inigo and Fezzik have to go through a certain amount of daring do in order to come up with the proper ingredients for the resurrection pill. Stuff like Inigo finding some frog dust while Fezzik is off after Holocaust mud. This latter, for example, requiring first Fezzik's acquiring a Holocaust cloak so he doesn't burn to death gathering the mud, etc. Well, it's my conviction that this is the same kind of thing as the Wizard of Oz sending Dorothy's friends to the Wicked Witch's castle for the ruby slippers. It's got the same feel, if you know what I mean, and I didn't want to risk, when the book's building to climax, the reader saying, oh, this is just like the Oz books. Here's the kicker, though. Morgenstern's Florinese version came before Baum wrote The Wizard of Oz, so in spite of the fact that he was the originator, he comes out just the other way around. It would be nice if somebody, maybe a PhD candidate on the loose, did a little something for Morgenstern's reputation, because, believe me, if being ignored is suffering, the guy has suffered. The other reason I made the cut is this. You just know that the resurrection pill has got to work. You don't spend all this time with a nutty couple like Max and Valerie to have it fail. At least, a whiz like Morgenstern doesn't. One last thing. Hiram, my editor, felt the Miracle Max section was too Jewish in sound, too contemporary. I really let him have it on that one. It's a very sore point with me, because just to take one example, there was a line in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid where Butch said, I got vision and the rest of the world wears bifocals, and one of my genius producers said, that line's gotta go. I don't put my name on this movie with that line in it. And I said, why? And he said, they didn't talk like that then. It's anachronistic. I remember explaining, Ben Franklin wore bifocals. Ty Cobb was batting champion of the American League when these guys were around. My mother was alive when these guys were alive, and she wore bifocals. We shook hands and ended enemies, but the line stayed in the picture. So here the point is, if Max and Valerie sound Jewish, why shouldn't they? You think a guy named Simon Morgenstern was Irish Catholic? Funny thing, Morgenstern's folks were named Max and Valerie, and his father was a doctor. Life imitating art, art imitating life. I really get those two confused, sort of like I can never remember if claret is Bordeaux wine or Burgundy. They both taste good is the only thing that really matters, I guess, and so does Morgenstern, and we'll pick it up again later, 13 hours later to be precise, 4 in the afternoon, 2 hours before the wedding. You mean that's it? Inigo said, appalled. That's it, Max said proudly. He'd not been up this long a stretch since the old days, and he felt terrific. Valerie was so proud.
Beautiful,
she said. She turned to Indigo then.
You sound so disappointed.
And it didn't even explode.
What did you think a resurrection pill looked like?
Not like a lump of clay the size of a golf ball, Inigo answered. Me again, italics. Last time this chapter. No, that is not anachronistic either. There were golf balls in Scotland 700 years ago. And not only that, remember Inigo had studied with Macpherson the Scot. As a matter of fact, everything Morgenstern wrote is historically accurate. Read any decent book on Florentine history.
I usually give them a coating of chocolate at the last minute. It makes them look a lot better, Valerie said.
It must be 4 o'clock, Max said. Better get the chocolate ready so it'll have time to harden. Valerie took the lump with her and started down the ladder to the kitchen.
You never did a better job. Smile.
It'll work without a hitch, Inigo said. Max nodded very firmly, but he did not smile. There was something in the back of his mind bothering him. He never forgot things, not important things, and he didn't forget this either. He just didn't remember it in time.
And what was it?
No!